Hi there and welcome to the Alt.Narrative Podcast. I'm your empathetic and relentlessly curious host, Rich Harris. I've been a corporate marketer and sociology nerd for most of my 2 decades-long career, observing trends and patterns in human behavior on the internet. On this podcast, we will explore the impact of the digital world on humanity and modern-day social dynamics. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to check out the website at Alt.Narrative.com for more content. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Alt.Narrative Podcast. I'm your host, the one who drank way too much coffee this morning, Rich Harris. Today I'll be reading an article that discusses some concerns about the declining mental and physical health patterns of generations X and Y. As a Gen Xer myself, I've always felt like my generation has a unique set of challenges. Growing up as sort of a latchkey kid like many other Gen Xers, we really are the only generation that knows what life was like before the internet and social media, while also being the first to navigate adulthood and parenthood during the internet/social media era's infusion into everyday culture. It is complicated, to say the least. The original article, entitled Health Declining in Gen X and Gen Y National Study Shows, was written by Jeff Grabmeier and published by Ohio State News from Ohio State University. The link for the original article will be provided in the caption of this episode on all Alt.Narrative channels. Health Declining in Gen X and Gen Y, a national study shows. Alarming trend includes mental and physical health and behaviors. Recent generations show a worrying decline in health compared to their parents and grandparents when they were the same age, a new national study reveals. Researchers found that, compared to previous generations, members of Generation X and Generation Y showed poorer physical health, higher levels of unhealthy behaviors such as alcohol use and smoking, and more depression and anxiety. The results suggest the likelihood of higher levels of diseases and more deaths in younger generations than we have seen in the past, said Hui Zhang, lead author of study and professor of sociology at The Ohio State University. Quote, "The worsening health profiles we found in Gen X and Gen Y is alarming," Zhang said. "If we don't find a way to slow this trend, we are potentially going to see an expansion of morbidity and mortality rates in the United States as these generations get older." Zhang conducted the study with Paola Echave, a graduate student in sociology at Ohio State. The results were published online yesterday, March 18, 2021, in the American Journal of Epidemiology. The researchers used data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey from 1988 to 2016, which had 62,833 respondents, and the National Health Interview Survey from 1997 to 2018, which had 625,221 respondents, both conducted by the National Center for Health Statistics. To measure physical health, the researchers used 8 markers of a condition called metabolic syndrome, a constellation of risk factors for heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and diabetes. Some of the markers include waist circumference, blood pressure, cholesterol level, and body mass index, or BMI. They also used 1 marker of chronic inflammation, low urinary albumin, and 1 additional marker of renal function, creatinine clearance. The researchers found that the measures of physical health have worsened from the baby boomer generation through Gen X, born 1965 to 1980, and Gen Y, born 1981 to 1999. For whites, increases in metabolic syndrome were the main culprit, while increases in chronic inflammation were seen most in Black Americans, particularly men. Quote, "The declining health trends in recent generations is a shocking finding," Zhang said. "It suggests we may have a challenging health prospect in the United States in the coming years." Zhang said it is beyond the scope of the study to comprehensively explain the reasons behind the health decline, but the researchers did check 2 factors. They found smoking couldn't explain the decline. Obesity could help explain the increase in metabolic syndrome, but not the increases seen in chronic inflammation. It wasn't just the overall health markers that were concerning for some members of the younger generations, Zhang said. Results showed that levels of anxiety and depression have increased for each generation of whites from the war babies generation born 1943 to 1945 through Gen Y. While levels of these 2 mental health indicators did increase for blacks up through the early baby boomers, the rate has been generally flat since then. Health behaviors also show worrying trends. The probability of heavy drinking has continuously increased across generations for whites and black males, especially after late Gen X, born 1973 to 1980. For whites and blacks, the probability of using street drugs peaked at late boomers, born 1956 to 1964, decreased afterward, then rose again for late Gen X. For Hispanics, it has continuously increased since early baby boomers. Surprisingly, results suggest the probability of having ever smoked has continuously increased across generations for all groups. How can this be true with other research showing a decline in overall cigarette consumption since the 1970s? Quote, "One possibility is that people in older generations are quitting smoking in larger numbers while younger generations are more likely to start smoking," Zhang said. But we need further research to see if that is correct. Zhang said these results may be just an early warning of what is to come. Quote, "People in Gen X and Gen Y are still relatively young, so we may be underestimating their health problems," he said. "When they get older and chronic diseases become more prevalent, we'll have a better view of their health status." Zhang noted that the United States has already seen recent decreases in life expectancy and increases in disability and morbidity. Quote, "Our results suggest that without effective policy interventions, these disturbing trends won't be temporary, but a battle we'll have to continue to fight." That wraps it up for today's Alt.Narrative podcast episode. Thank you for listening, and please check us out online at Alt.Narrative.com for more content.